Slip inside this house. Hey, everyone. It is Friday. How are ya? Good to see ya. Hope your strong end of the week, Saturday and Sunday, was good for you. And welcome. Glad that you are here. Love the conversation going on. I'll tell you, was busy preparing in here, and it's phenomenal. Just got to say thank you to all the moderators. So good to see you as well. When planning, and I know moderators, this is coming in at a late notice, but I'll get to you in the emails. Friday, doing an all moderator show. Kind of get to know the people that you see in here, like Franny and Lois, lots of others. So anyway, hello, Richard, Maverick, Dragon, Soul Fox. Good to see you, Lost in Space. Hadley, hello. Al, good to see you, my friend. So good. Al's a good guy, folks. I'm looking forward to seeing as many of the moderators as we can get in here. David, good to see you. Shoots for par. Twisted Isby, peace. Let's see. What else going on? Hey, Franny, what did you think of that song? 13th floor elevators. The sound you're hearing in the background, by the way, is a whiskey jug. Has a very unique sound to it. And the interesting thing about the 13th floor elevators, a little history here before we get started. Group out of Austin, Texas, late 60s, early 70s. Lead singer really had a tough go of it, man. I mean, they were definitely into LSD. You can tell by their music, and a lot of it's very, it's like, how shall I say, gematria. It's, he puts a lot in there. When he would take his trips and write his music, it truly represented itself when you hear the words. So check it out. Slip inside this house. By the way, little insight. I saw them when I was almost turning 16, and saw them in Austin, Texas. And that song, listen to it. It's like, wow, this dude was really ahead of the whole curve. I mean, yeah. So anyway, straight champ. Yeah. So hey, Trina, how are you? Blazing River, good to see you, my friend. Material classified. Trina and I will be on tomorrow. Always fun looking for that. EO, good to see you, my dear friend. Melissa, Jenny, the Master Troy, David, Barry. David, just sending out thoughts for you and your mom. You know, the transition sometimes can suck. But and all the rest that are dealing out there, we send our good feelings of love and friendship to Patrick as well, and so many others who are dealing with issues where death is concerned. It's no game, is it? Happy birthday as well to everyone. If it's your day, man, live it up. So just invoking favor upon everyone this day, abundant favor, favor that exceeds your expectations, favor that meets you coming and going, that when you go in, you go out. Whether you're in the city or whether you're in the country, may favor always walk with you. And when I say full restoration, I mean, listen, imagine if you could just have a partial amount of what has been taken from you. I mean, health, youth, memories. Imagine if you could regain 10% of your memories from your childhood. How about 30%? It's amazing. Anyway, full restoration, nothing missing, nothing broken. And I had an email. Actually, I got a lot of them over the weekend. Wow. The reason why we're doing this show, I was going to do the one on our continued study of conjuring, but I literally woke up this morning at 3:33 a.m. with this on my mind, what we're going to get into because of the emails I got. But I want to share this because I did get permission from Gunnar to do this. Favor. The reason why I do it every day is that I know you reap what you sow. And I speak favor into your life because I know the seed time, harvest time principle. And when you apply your life to that, well, things have a way of manifesting. And so I speak favor into your life every day because I know it works. It's not just something I do because, as one said, uh, wrote me and said, "Why do you invoke favor before every show?" She said, "I've been looking on YouTube. I've even went to Facebook. No one else does this." She said, "You are the only one." Yeah, I am the only one. There's no one else that's doing it. But the reason why I do it is because I know it works. And I had a person write me, and I thought that this was just so freaking cool. And I'll give you the synopsis of the email. Gentleman and his wife uh, were going to the grocery store. They were the first one there. In fact, he said they were the only one there. And while they were shopping, uh, the store lost power. And the store manager came up and said, "Listen, we don't have any power. We have no way of checking you out." And he says, "We're going to have to ask you to leave." But he said, "Before you go," he said, "everything in your cart is free." And he says, "Our freezers have gotten just at, I think, 41 degrees. Now that's typically the health limits for, dairy, milk, eggs, meat. Get this, folks. He said that the store manager said, but you could pack all the meat and dairy products into your cart, no charge." Now, that couple believes in the evocation of favor. Even if it's your own favor, you have remarkable power individually. In fact, that's what this whole journey is about, you. And so when you invoke favor into other people's lives, your enemy lives, those who come against you, those who would try to cause you harm in any way, when you invoke favor upon them, you take all the power away from them. And it's something that I would recommend all of you doing. I hope you do, and start making it a part of your life. So, yeah, do it. You'll be glad for it. Cheers. Ah, that is so good. All right. I'm going to give you a very quick, because we got a lot of material to cover. This is going to be like class. Franny, this is literally going to be like, the lectures in your class. So I am reading two books. By the way, this one I do recommend. The Murder of Moses, by Rand and Rose Flim. I think that's off. And, I didn't realize that Sigmund Freud believed, now, he was a victim of the Holocaust, had to leave Austria, and had to live in England. And when he made his breakthrough in the psychology of the mind, which was radical. There's some things I still don't agree with Freud, but hey, listen, he made the name, not me. But he believed all the way back to Queen Elizabeth I, Charles Marlowe, who was, by the way, brought up on charges of heresy, because Marlowe, even back in I think it was 1560, something right around there, realized that, hey, something's wrong here. The Torah doesn't make sense. This character, the central character, the progenitor of everything, something's not right. And thus far, what I have read has been very intriguing. Again, we're living in the age of where all the spells are being broken. The illusions are literally dissolving before us. And those who have eyes to see and hearts to receive you're beginning to realize some things. And, magic, we teach it here. I teach it fervently because it's time to show the other side of the paradigm. But if the story is, and the evidence is showing it, we've all been screwed. I'll give you more to it as I get into it. Now, I was up late. I'm reading this book, The Energetic War Against Humanity. Endall Bill, brilliant freaking mind. This one, folks, this is a serious book. He warns people right from the get-go. If you're in certain doctrines, locked, listen, the thing that we have to understand, most people would rather live with a lie and be enslaved. It's easier. You don't have to ask all the hard questions. You don't. And, when the illusion becomes see-through, yeah, this book is a heavy one, folks. It's a heavy one. And I believe that what he has proven in his case is one that may in fact be right. There is, and I'll just give you the quick abridged version, what I've read thus far. There is no creators. There's no God sitting on a throne, Caucasian white dude with long white hair. No savior going to be riding a white horse, because this is all a script, a construct. We are but a long list, a history of other homos, man. They call us mankind. And there's a difference. You have to ask yourself, did the Neanderthals have a soul? Did the Denisovans? I've just ordered a book on the Denisovans, and what I've read in the reason why I ordered the book, they were highly advanced. Really were. It's evidence that planet Earth is nothing more than an experiment with many different intelligences taking their turns, much like a astrophysicist who's looking for time on a telescope. And all the evidence, what we're going to talk about right now, shows that we are the version of us today. We are a violent species. And all the evidence says they're going to terminate the experiment. Today, modern man is more vicious, more deceptive in its makeup. Even, I think it could be argued where anthropologists, and Franny, you could easily chime in on this one. Hey, Brian, how you doing, buddy? Is that, are we sapiens? Are we sapiens sapiens? Are we mankind or are we humans? Man is different than mankind. And I know that's going to throw some people, what are you talking about? Listen, folks, the reality is that the current version, us, of man, we're a mistake. We fabricate wars. Every culture, every society has murder, killing, stealing, deception, lying, fraudulent, two-faced, gossipers. I can just go on down the list. That's what we are. Now, you would counter and say, but what, Wayne, we also have many favorable attributes. I would argue that. That's a self-perception that man carries universally, the same attributes of kindness, mercy, compassion. Because if that is true, then there wouldn't be any murder, rape, killing, stealing. So something is fundamentally wrong here. Now, we're going to get into something because I got yesterday, when I get like 5 emails on Jeff and I, when we did our show yesterday, Not Your Normal Sunday show, I made the statement, there is no such thing as Lucifer. There's no such thing as Satan. And there's certainly no such thing as a devil. And I actually got two emails from 2 pastors. When I did this, what I'm about to show you, I did this 2 years ago. And there were only like 11,000 subscribers. There's quite a few more today. And so I actually had 2 pastors asking to explain how Lucifer and Satan are not one and the same when you say they do not exist. And what I have found, someone says, what's the shirt? I am not weird. It says, I am a limited edition. And that's the fact, Jack. It's the truth. So just got a whole bunch of new shirts in. So this will be fun. So the thing that I find most people that are most afraid of is the devil. You know, this imaginary made up character that is responsible for all the bad in the world. And then we're further ignorant of the fact that today we're so sloppy. We're sloppy in our thinking, we're sloppy in our communication, and we're sloppy in virtually everything, theology, dogma, ideology, whatever. And we've been taught that Lucifer, Satan, the devil are all synonymous. Well, they're not. So let's get right into this, because I want to break, if we're going to teach magic, and if you're ever going to be able to perform your own magic, you're going to have to get rid of these deep recessed fears. And I hope today to show you why there is no such thing as the devil, as Satan, as Lucifer. Evil exists because man has defined it as such. It does not exist in the side of an unseen personification, but only that which man has created in his imagination has he brought forth. Better to get hurt by the truth than comforted with a lie. The reality of the truth is this: there is no higher reality than truth. And it's a conundrum because reality is individually perceived. So how can you define an ultimate reality that everyone could literally adapt to? It's why we are where we are, folks. It's true. The question becomes, but whose version of the truth do you believe? Theirs or yours? You see, at some point in time, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to have to resign yourself to this. It's not the truth that you're looking from out, it's the truth you're looking from within. The only truth that truly exists is your truth, not my truth, not Mary's truth, not John's truth, your truth. I'm not here to convert you. I don't want you to convert. There's nothing to convert to. Yourself. I'm not pushing an agenda. There's nothing I have here to push. But what I am asking is that you begin to do rational thought to the questions that you've been told not to ask. Go, whose version of the truth are you going to believe? Someone who wrote something on a page? someone who experienced something that you have not, and you try to adapt your truth to that, it's always going to turn out bad. Here is the point, and I think tomorrow show we'll get into this as well. You have to relearn to question everything again, as you did when you first arrived here on this planet, when you completed the initiation of the birthright. Remember, as a child, what do toddlers do? Why do you do that? Why is that like, why? And it can go on for years. They're doing something that we got deceived. I call it the God spell. I call it, there is something that permeates Western culture, and now it permeates, the collective consciousness of this version of us. But if you would begin to adapt the same technique that you, get this, you knew instinctively as a child to question everything. You question, think about it. You question everything. We're taught, and this is not true for everybody because not everyone has parents, but we're taught that the parental figure is the knowledge base. But isn't it interesting, even when we have those very beginning building blocks of what authority is, what is knowledge, who possesses it, who do I trust, etc. All these things are complicated. And most of us learn them by the time we're 2 years old. And once we get those down, now we begin the exploration. Relearn to question everything. I love this. Lauryn Hill, reality is easy. It's deception that's the hard work. Oh, is so true. So, the thing that they have manipulated, and I don't know who the hell they are. We don't know what they are. We have a sense that we know that they exist in some dimension. We just know what we have to begin to look here. So the thing about mankind, us today, the historical fiction, a story with fictional characters that is set in a real time in history. We're so desperate as a species to know our beginnings. We never will. I don't think they'll ever reveal it. In fact, I have a sense they will literally put us to an end and they're going to restart this. We'll get more into that. The reality of truth. What if you already know it? So let's just start getting the deck cleared right here. If you do not belong to a religion, you make no proclamation to one. And if you were in one formerly and renounced it, this was the one I was it. You are under no legal obligation to any god, gods, God, or God, commandments, or to any religion. The 10 Commandments have no validity, no legal standing in your life. They don't apply to me. They don't apply to you. If you've not, accepted this ritual, if you have rejected it as I haven't found a God yet that I liked, then I'm saying, starting right from the get-go, the 10 Commandments, throw it out. Now, I'm not saying the ethic and moral validity of some of them, but you know what? Right from the get-go, that's why I could never accept an invitation to join a Masonic lodge or anything like that. I will not take an oath to a God or a deity that I don't trust. And one that I haven't met a God yet that's above me. So understand this. You have no legal obligation. The first one, thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's you, baby. And the rest of them you determine, unless you choose to do so without coercion. If you are free will and decide to adapt to that, more power to you. Right on. Do it with all the energy and vigor you can. You got one shot at this, baby. So if that's the route you want to go, then do it. For me and hundreds of millions of me's like me, we say no. I've always said no. Let's talk about deception real quick. Deception is an intentional act in which the senders knowingly transmit message to foster a false belief or interpretation by the receiver. The act of causing someone to accept as true or valid what is false or invalid. The act of deceiving, resorting to falsehood and deception. By the book. You have no idea what you believe because most of it is wrong. That's the first, I think that's the first paradox we all solve, because by the 7 principles, every paradox can be solved. And when we can begin to accept the fact that what we have been taught morally, religiously, spiritually, ethically, listen, is all a deception. If it wasn't, our governments wouldn't be, the world wouldn't be in the condition it is. The story doesn't work because it was a fabricated story. If the story was to work, it would already be abounding beyond any expectation, and it's not. So what you have to do is say, all right, so what's my reality? Well, it comes down to enjoying the journey. Now, truth is your truth. So which God has murdered and killed more Homo sapiens? You want to know? The God of the Bible or Lucifer? I brought this up, and I have put a money challenge out there. Prove me wrong. You can't. Because here's the thing. Satan doesn't exist. In the days of the Old Testament, Satan was a general term for that which was opposed or adverse, an adversary. It means literally enemy, adversary. So you have to understand the Old Testament is a fabricated story. And it always amazes me how the world adapts to it as though it was their own story. The story has virtually no basis for anything other than the transmittal of fear, subjugation, and enslavement. That's all it is. Listen, in the book, Who Murdered Moses? They knew Yahweh was a murderous, temperamental son of a bitch. They knew it. The first act they found out was this God that they were now worshiping, as one of the slaves wrote, we've exchanged a more wicked master than the one we left. Remember, it was Yahweh that killed 3,000 of them for making something that he disapproved of. Folks, it's just the fact. The angel of the Lord that stood in the way of Balaam and his donkey is called a Satan. That Satan was against Balaam. That's in Numbers 22:32. God rises up Hadad of Edom as a Satan against Solomon. 1 Kings 11:14. God raises up individuals, nations, and spiritual entities as Satans. This is a wicked God, folks. You might as well get accepted to that. And it gave birth to Jesus. Anyway, In this way, Satan is just a generic term for an adversarial role. To this day, much of the Jewish tradition believes Satan to be the evil inclination of humans and having no power except through our evil actions. Now, the Christian church, the Catholic Church, you see, the Catholic Church didn't have anything to build on. They didn't have a God. They didn't have a history. And there was nothing really to do. That's why they had to steal a culture in order to make the story even sellable. The book of Job is the first place where the word Satan is used in an actual personified way, because this is a parable using an adversarial archetype as a main character. However, every time this character is mentioned in Job, it appears with the article "the" in front of it, as in the Satan, or literally the adversary, as a generic descriptive term. Now, come on, folks. You can't have it every way that this Satan is the devil. All the horror movies, all those Satanists, you know, they're worshiping themselves. It doesn't exist. And yet you're going to tell me that this Satan walked before God, then that means, hey, that's why hell can't exist. Or if it does, which it doesn't, then it's an inside job. It's the Costa Nostra. All right. Although English Bibles capitalize the word Satan, they did it, not the original manuscripts. Again, you're going to find out the forgeries that have been done from Jerome on in Job, as well as leaves the article "the" off. It is clear that the Satan is not meant as a personal name, because Hebrew never puts "the" in front of a personal name ever. And in the Hebrew text, "the" appears in front of the word Satan in Job every time without exception. It's been altered. It's a forgery. And yet people say, oh, this. In Hebrew tradition, all things, both evil and good, come from the hand of God. Well, see, that disqualifies him right there. What kind of psychopath wants to be worshiped and does the creating and then does the murdering? Yeah. The Satan then represents God's destructive agency, a kind of prosecuting attorney appointed by God, who watched for those who did not obey the law, so he could accuse and punish them on God's behalf. This is that other part of that belief that they say that God in the Catholic Church is on the leash. But they'll tell you the Catholic Church is the one who worships Lucifer, and that's a fact. In this way, the adversary was not evil per se. He just fulfilled God's destructive will. The Satan, therefore, came to be known as the accuser. In those days, the Satan was not the wicked demonic idea of a being that he is now. Those conceptual demonic entities were more along the lines of false gods such as Baal and Moloch and other malevolent pagan deities to whom people participated in bizarre rituals and human sacrifice. During all this time, the serpent of Genesis was not yet equated to Satan. In the New Testament, the personification of the Satan was a character as followed. As apocalyptic writings became more popular in the intertestamental period, such as the Book of Enoch, and in this genre of literature predominantly imagine an archetype enemy and personification of evil. Thus, the genetic adversarial title, the Satan, evolved into the personal name Satan and came to be seen in a more diabolical sense. So from the Old Testament to the New Testament, we see the Satan conceptually evolve from the adversarial agency of God, through which God exercises his destructive will, to the demonic enemy of God, whom God has come to be defeated. This was to solidify the progressive breaking off of the satanic adversarial element from our concept of God. Jesus, not the actual name, another deception, was to refine our understanding of God and expose the adversarial destructive agency as opposed to God instead of part of God. For God is the accuser and destroyer of Homo sapiens. He is not a father and a giver of life as portrayed. Not until later centuries did Satan begin being equated with Lucifer, just which means morning star, and comes from a prophecy about an earthly king of Babylon in Isaiah 14. Like the unbiblical doctrine of the rapture, which was developed in the 1800s and was novel enough to become indoctrinated into multitudes within 200 years, the power of tradition turned morning star, the earthly king of Babylon, into Lucifer, a pre-existent spiritual being who wanted to become like God and fell. At some point, as time progressed, it just became a fact that Satan was always the fallen angel who rebelled against God in pre-existent times. People will often point to Revelations 12:7 and 9 to defend the idea that Satan was a pre-existent angel who fell. But that scripture has no ties to Isaiah 14 prophecy about the king of Babylon, nor does it mention any type of fall of a good angel. Rather, it is about the deceiver and the accuser being cast down and losing its place of authority. So now we have the question then, who is Lucifer? Lucifer makes his appearance in the 14th chapter of the Old Testament book of Isaiah. At the 12th verse, and nowhere else, it reads following: How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? The first problem is that Lucifer is a Latin name. Now, all of you who can't handle this, you got to answer truthfully. How can you have Lucifer in an ancient Hebraic document when the name doesn't exist? Got a problem, huh? Make believe. So, how did it find its way into a Hebrew manuscript written before there was a Roman language? To find the answer, a scholar at the library of the Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati gave his answer. What Hebrew name was Satan given in this chapter of Isaiah, which describes the angel who fell to become the ruler of hell? He said, wait a minute, something ain't right here. In the original Hebrew text, the 14th chapter of Isaiah is not about a fallen angel. It's about a fallen Babylonian king who, during his lifetime, had persecuted the children of Israel. It contains no mention of Satan, either by name or reference. The Hebrew scholar could only speculate that some early Christian scribes, writing in the Latin tongue, used by the church, had decided for themselves that they wanted the story to be about a fallen angel. They don't exist. A creature not even mentioned in the original Hebrew text, and to whom they gave the name Lucifer. These are fanatics. And look at it. The world bought it hook, line, and sinker. So how did that happen? We're going to get into it. In 382 AD, Pope Damascus commissioned the scholar Jerome to make an official version of the many versions of the Bible that were floating around in the Catholic Church at the time. There was no Bible. Jerome went off to a cave in Bethlehem, where he proceeded to make his translation, the Old Testament, part of which he supposedly based on the Hebrew text. But in practice, Jerome based his Old Testament very largely on Greek language Septuagint version. The 50th, you can see it, LLX, of the Old Testament, which Origen, by the way, where do we know Origen from? Origen had the Liber Lilith. Oh, well, this is not about Lilith. But let's continue, because here Origen now comes up again. Had produced about 140 years earlier while in Caesarea. In AD 450, Jerome had completed his work, which we today know as the Latin Vulgate Bible. It is far from a practically accurate translation of the original text. Rather, it is an interpretation of thought put into idiomatic, graceful Latin. But an interpretation of thought is only good when the translator has a perfect understanding of the thoughts he is translating. But if a translator has a flawed understanding of the thoughts he is trying to translate, then his interpretations of thoughts result in a very flawed and misleading translation. For 1,000 years, this Vulgate translation was without rival, and herein lies the problem. The Latin Vulgate translation was the only version of the Bible available to the people of Europe during the period of time called the Dark Ages. There was no possibility for anyone to compare the Vulgate with any other translation or with Hebrew or Greek manuscripts. Jerome understood that Isaiah 14:12 was talking about Satan. There, the Hebrew word Hallel is used for Satan, and Jerome translated this into Latin as Lucifer. The Latin word Lucifer is made up from two Latin words. These two words are lux, which equals light, and ferus, to bear or to carry. Thus, the name Lucifer means in the Latin language light bearer or light bringer. But that is not what the Hebrew word Hallel means. Shortly, we will see exactly what this word Hallel does mean. Anyway, as a result of this Latin Vulgate translation, which was virtually the only version of the Bible in use throughout Europe for the next 1,000 years, Satan's popularity became known as Lucifer. This identity for Satan with the name Lucifer was established throughout Europe long before there ever was a translation into the English language. It should be clear that when the first people to translate the Bible into English came along, one of their paradigms was that the name Lucifer applied to Satan. When they came to translate Isaiah 14:12 into English, they decided, this was King James Court, to substitute, actually this is Shakespeare, Lord Bacon, they would simply, when they came to translate Isaiah 14:12 into English, they decided that rather than actually translate the Hebrew word Hallel, they would simply substitute it with the already well-known Latin name Lucifer. And they could do this because on the surface, this seems to be a reasonable, accurate translation, but it isn't really accurate at all. So let's summarize. It was the Catholic Church who assigned the name Lucifer to Satan. This Latin word is supposedly the translation of the Hebrew noun Hallel used in Isaiah 14:12. But Lucifer was not an original way of mistranslating the Hebrew word Hallel. Rendering the Hebrew word Hallel into Latin as Lucifer was simply copying the precedent set in the Greek language of the Septuagint translation. The Greek Septuagint had translated Isaiah 14:12 into Greek as Isophos, the older way of spelling the Greek word phosphorus. Are you seeing the correlation, folks? How they built the brimstone, hell, fire, the whole bit. It was methodical, folks, and you accept it as reality. So the reason why Jerome mistranslated Hallel as Lucifer is because centuries earlier in the Septuagint had already mistranslated Hallel as phosphorus in Greek. The Greek word phosphorus, the Latin word Lucifer, means absolutely 100% the same thing. Absolutely. No personification. Phosphorus, folks. In their respective languages, both words mean the light bearer or light bringer. They are just as identical as are the English word bread and the German word Brot, or the English word knife and the German word Messer. Phosphorus and Lucifer are completely identical in meaning. Now, I spent months putting this together, and I challenge any of you to refute the research. So the word Lucifer is a perfect translation into Latin of the Greek word phosphorus. This means that Jerome perfectly translated into Latin the Greek Septuagint interpretation of Isaiah 14:12, but Jerome made no attempt to correctly translate the Hebrew word Hallel into Latin. Jerome simply latched onto the mistranslated Greek version of Isaiah while totally ignoring the ramifications of this way of translating into Latin. He was lazy. Remember, he was living off, people who were actually working. So what does the Greek Septuagint says? In the Greek language, in the Septuagint text of the Old Testament, the word phosphorus, actually, its older version is esphorus, is used 7 times. Phosphorus is, in fact, used to translate 6 different Hebrew words into Greek. Here are the 6 scriptures. The first is in 1 Samuel 30:17. The Greek word phosphorus represents the Hebrew word neshith, which means twilight. In the Latin Vulgate, this is rendered as vesper. The Latin vesperus, means evening. In Job 3:9, we've discussed this. The Greek word phosphorus represents the Hebrew word aphrith, which means eyelids, and by extension, dawn. The King James Version rendering of the dawning of day is rendered in the Jewish translation as eyelids of the morning. In the Latin Vulgate, this is rendered as aurora. The Latin aurora means dawn or break or sunrise. In Job 11:17, the Greek word phosphorus represents the Hebrew word bogar, and I may probably pronouncing that, which means morning or daybreak. In the Latin Vulgate, this Hebrew word is here rendered as Lucifer. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm showing you succinctly, Lucifer does not exist, neither does Satan. And a devil is a name that you can add to anyone. It's a title. All right, as we continue to go forth in Job 41:18, which is Job 41:10 in the Septuagint, the Greek word phosphorus represents the Hebrew shakar, which means dawn or dayspring. In the Latin Vulgate, in Job 38:12, is rendered as diluculo. And in Job 41:18, which is also Job 41:9 in the Vulgate, it is rendered as dulcia. The Latin dulcium, which means lesser, and break of day and dawn. In Psalms 110:3, the Greek word phosphorus represents the Hebrew word mishar, which means dawn. In the Latin Vulgate, this Hebrew word is rendered by the adjective luciferum, which means light bringer. In Isaiah 14:12, we've talked about this enough. The Greek word phosphorus represents the Hebrew word hael. We see that the meaning of this word later, but in the Latin Vulgate, this is rendered as Lucifer, which means light bringer. The one Greek word phosphorus, which specifically means light bringer, has been used in the Latin Vulgate, the Greek Septuagint, to translate 6 different Hebrew words with the following meaning: Nashir, twilight; Aphir, meaning eyelid; dawn; Bogar, meaning morning; Shahar, meaning dawn; Mishar, meaning dawn, dayspring, and Hayel, meaning, we'll examine that shortly. I know this is technical, but you know what, folks? If you can get it understood where all of this originated free, it's going to set you free. You won't have to be scared of the boogeyman anymore. Boogeyman doesn't exist. Doesn't exist in the spirit realm. All right, let's continue. The Greek word phosphorus does not mean morning. The Greek word for daybreak and for dawn, which is used about 26 times in the Greek Septuagint, is orthros, e.g. Genesis 19:15. Thus, the above Hebrew word aphraf, or boger, and shahar and mishar would all have been translated more accurately by the Greek word orthros than phosphorus. Translating the Hebrew nesphith into phosphorus in the Greek was clearly a mistake, which even Jerome recognized. And that is why Jerome therefore translated this correctly into Latin as vesper, or meaning evening. That leaves the one Hebrew word hael, that is also mistranslated in the Greek Septuagint as phosphorus. Hael really does not have anything to do with bringing anything. It's simply about bringing or carrying, it's simply not about bringing or carrying anything, be it light or be it anything else. But this is typical of the extremely poor quality of the Septuagint translation. Here, they have indiscriminately translated 6 different Hebrew words with one Greek word, phosphorus. It is the same as the Latin Vulgate indiscriminately translating 15 different Hebrew words with one Greek word, and this is it's hupasteis. The Greek language in the Septuagint, Old Testament, is a very poor quality and very unreliable translation. That's the kindest thing that we can say about it. So, as you can begin to see, when you start mistranslating, adding to, taking away a text that the translators, remember, every translator is nothing more than the psychic imprint of the personality of the person doing the translating. Every human has biases, prejudices, and will alter. And look, 2,000 years later, all based on the misconception. And if anybody wants this PowerPoint, I'll send it to you. It goes on. I get very detailed, as you can see. So Lucifer is a made-up name. The other made-up names, the devil, also known as Satan, Beelzebub, Lucifer, the Prince of Darkness, Mr. Scratch, Old Nick, is the cloven hoof, pitchfork-wielding redskin, horned king of hell, and founder of rock and roll music. He is also a gambler and a businessman, willing to make bets or contracts with you and grant you your wishes, musical abilities in exchange for your immortal soul. You can't sell your soul. Why Lucifer? It's very simple. In Roman astronomy, Lucifer was the name given to the morning star, the star we now know by another Roman name, Venus. The morning star appears in the heavens just before dawn, heralding the rising sun. The name derives from the Latin term lucerum, fera, bringer or bearer of light. So you can see this as well. In the Hebrew text, the expression used to describe the Babylonian king, as we've seen before the death, is Halel, the son of Shehar, which was best to describe as day star, the son of dawn. Has nothing to do with anything that we have taken today into the spookiness, the mystification. You know, you get people wrapped up, 10 commandments. Oh, they want to put up the sign of the devil. Neither one exists. Neither one has any meaning. At least on humans, you're dealing up with made up constructs. And then when they created the New Testament, invented it, well, they had to sew in the deviousness, the antithesis of their progenitor, their star, this character called the Messiah. Lucifer does not miss. It's totally made up. Now, when you begin to look at the Hebrew God, this dude is bad. It's when I was doing a lot of this research that I made the public declaration before any heaven and earth and everything else. I don't belong to this God, never have, never will, disown it. Anything that I ever took a vow towards it was based on fraud, deception. I reject this God, and I recommend you do as well. You don't want to be with this God. This is a bad, bad man, or whatever it is. And folks, I'll let you see it. This is the fact. So I hope if there's one thing that you can finally understand, there is no Satan, there is no Lucifer. And I hope that answered the question to those who sent in the emails on this. I did this a couple of years ago. This will stand as a refresher. But the point is, folks, there's nothing to be afraid of here. Now, as we get into magic, you have to understand a lot of the magic that came out of the Renaissance and proliferated through the Dark Ages. And it was the Dark Ages for a reason. Knowledge was suppressed. And it was a bad time for humanity. And what we have today is basically the ignorance of the masses. They won't do the research. They won't find out for themselves that much of what they believe on is a lie. So, well, thank you, Darth. It's detailed. And again, any of you who want the PowerPoint, I'll send it to you. You can look at all the references yourself. It took me months to put that together, and you're getting the benefit instantaneously. So as we go forward, when we see the terms of the demons and we see these other terms invoking, devils and what have you, folks, we're going to get rid of that. I believe that spells do exist. I believe they can be cast, and I do believe they in fact work. I know it. It's because of us. And I think what I just went an hour methodically going over for all of us is how we can so easily become deceived. And many of us, there was a time I'd have laid my life down for the fact that this was truth. Wow. The best thing about old age, you get to learn some of the stupidity of what you did in your prior lives, your youth and early adulthood. And, you got to say, man, that's favor. When you can come back and say, okay, wait a minute. I want to change my vote on that. Yeah, we all do for good reason. But that's not to say intelligence exists. Spirituality exists. We are spiritual beings. And it's a mistake We were never meant to have souls. We were never meant to have this aspect to us. And this is why the battle, the dichotomy of the duality of the nature. And, if we are an experiment, then I say it's time we screw with the scientist. Let's really give them a mind coitus trip. You see, there's no reason why we can't take the knowledge, the power, the understanding, evocation, invocation, and turn the tables. We don't have to bow, pray, or command any spirit. We are that which we need, and combined together, that's why they fear us. When we start in small numbers like this, and we begin to grow, we begin to expand, we get more and more people involved, things begin to change. Because you see, the one thing that deneuters every God, every belief system, is when you stop believing. I mean, they become eunuchs. Thanks, Jack Dream. Appreciate that. Folks, do your research. Make your own decisions based on your own truth. If there's one thing I can tell you, you are your own truth. When you die, you're going to die alone, just like you were born. And if you don't believe your own truth, then you become a candidate to be consumed by somebody else's. All right. Al, thank you. And just think, it was only an hour. Y'all are the best. Thank you. I will see you tomorrow with our good friend Trina. Think about this, folks. I challenge anyone. If you can show me where my research is in any way flawed and where I did not accurately bring historical details and events to this presentation, then please do. I'll invite you on, and you have to make a PowerPoint that would counter it. Show me where I'm wrong in any of this. I've had priests, I've had theologians who have looked at this and said this is probably one of the best works. Now, I have really gone over it. There is another website that we'll go to, we'll revisit on this, that also now adds to this. So the knowledge is coming out. I wish there was someone known as Lucifer. If Lucifer is the feminine and the other character is the male, I would choose Lucifer. Just be candid with you. I trust, if that character, if the personification existed, I have no reason not to trust it. It's never harmed me. This other God has tried to kill me. And given enough time, it'll try to kill you. All right, folks, boy, we have really gone over. Peace, man. And we'll see you. Smile. Bring joy into your life. Learn to laugh. And I'll tell you, if you start laughing when you're folding clothes or doing the dishes or at your job, I'm telling you, you're sending a frequency and a vibration that's going to draw in that same type of beautiful feeling. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it.